Being the number one man in the most influential nation on earth is surely not as easy as it seems on the surface, but it surely has its perks. Time and again, we've repeatedly seen US presidents strap sleek timepieces on their wrists with a confident strut. But have you ever wondered what the most iconic models ever graced by Potus is? Today, we'd be diving into the times of the US presidents unveiling the most interesting and distinct watches ever worn. Here's a heads up though, some of the stories behind them would leave you on the edge of your seats. In the Western world, it's common for influential leaders to be formally dressed, especially during public occasions. Having said that, one accessory that never seems to be left indoors is their watches. Some models, like the Rolex Day-Dates, are more common than others, which is likely the reason why it's been dubbed the President's Watch. Ready or not, here lies some of the most iconic watches to have the honor of being worn by America's presidents. What a better way to start than referring to the pocket watch worn by America's first president, the Jean-Antoine Le Pin pocket watch. What we find most interesting about George Washington is that he was a true lover of horology. In a time when every affluent man was almost incomplete without a worthy watch collection, Washington needed one, a really good one. In 1788, he wrote a letter to Gouverneur Morris, who eventually became the US Minister of Finance, asking him to buy a timepiece for him in Paris during his business trip to Europe. According to reports, he wanted a simple gold watch of good quality similar to the piece James Madison bought with the help of Thomas Jefferson. Alas, 3 months later, Washington received a letter from Paris. Morris wrote to Washington that he had contacted Jefferson, who warned him to stay away from the watchmaker of Madison's timepiece because the watchmaker was a dupe. Looking for alternatives, he contacted another watchmaker, Grigson, who turned out to be similar. What felt like an endless quest finally came to an end when he came across the famous Jean-Antoine Le Pin, King Louis XVI's watchmaker, who made two identical watches, one for Washington and the other for Morris. Fun fact, Washington's large, simple but elegant key-wound 59mm 18-karat gold watch remained in his family until 1935. Loved and admired by all, the Kennedys were America's very own royal family. John F. Kennedy was quite famous for several notable achievements, but did you know he had a fiery passion for rectangular watches? One of his favorites, and probably his actual favorite, was a Cartier tank, famously gifted to him by his wife, Jacqueline Kennedy, for their 4th anniversary. Apart from that, this was also the timepiece he wore on the day he was assassinated in 1963. Face it, it's hard to exaggerate the significance of a Cartier tank. Ask around, it's one of the most iconic watches to ever grace the scenes of luxury in horology. Regardless of if you buy a large-size Cartier tank or not, you'd be hard-pressed to say it's a bulky timepiece. At the end of the day, it's highly appropriate for any occasion, perfect for an elegant man like Kennedy. To make things far more interesting, his model was the Louis Cartier tank, one of the most elegant versions of the tank. Go ahead and ask your dealer. It sells like a hotcake among watch connoisseurs. One of the most iconic features is its slightly expanded rectangular case and dial, which perfectly match the rounded, sleek-looking bezel inserts that flawlessly integrate the strap. It also uses a mechanical movement, the manually wound caliber 1917 MC. Do you remember when we stated Kennedy was a lover of luxury timepieces? Apart from his Cartier tank, he also loved his square Omega Ultra Thin with the reference OT3980 with an engraved inscription. Similar to his tank Louis, he was also gifted this watch, this time from the Florida Senator Grant Stockdale during his presidential campaign. He loved it so much that according to the letter addressed from Jacqueline Kennedy to Mr. Stockdale, JFK was so happy with his new watch that he immediately removed the Cartier on his wrists gifted to him by Jacqueline. Then again, given how it was the same watch he wore to his inauguration ceremony, wouldn't it be fair to assume it was one of his favorites? Cased in 18-karat gold with a 2mm caliber, manually wound movement, the watch is as thin as its name implies. After the tragic death of President Kennedy, which shocked the world at large, his sensational watch collection found its way into various hands, many of which got into Robert White's collection. However, there is an interesting twist we'd like to add. In 2005, the watch was submitted for auction with Guernseys in New York City, where it was bought back by the Omega Museum in Bienne, Switzerland, for the sum of $350,000. Going forward, we have a man quite recent that everyone should know of. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about none other than former US President Bill Clinton and his Jaeger-LeCoultre Navy SEALs automatic watch. Without further ado, this beautiful work of art comes in a stainless steel case with a width measurement of 42mm and a thickness of 12.75mm. In addition, it has a 60-click unidirectional stainless steel bezel with a black ceramic insert with sharp-looking cutouts for the diving timer. How familiar are you with the Jaeger-LeCoultre's comparison key design? If you own a master compressor, we're sure you are familiar with it, but for the benefit of the doubt, here's something we find quite amazing about it. With just a half turn of the crown guard, the crown would instantly get set free to be pulled out for tweaking with the date and time or to wind its movement. Speaking of movements, feel free to move underwater with this on your wrists. Thanks to a rated resistance of depths of up to 300 meters underwater, you can't go wrong with it. With so many good things to say about this timepiece, an easy con resides in its movement. To be blunt, the Jaeger-LeCoultre Caliber 899 leaves a lot to be desired. It runs at 4 Hz, which is far from being bad at all, but when you consider it has a power reserve of merely 43 hours, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Yep, our thoughts exactly. Another iconic timepiece worn by Bill Clinton, which we desperately have to talk about, is the $50 Timex Ironman digital watch he wore publicly. It sounds shocking, right? Imagine the looks on everyone's faces, puzzled and asking themselves, is Bill Clinton publicly wearing a cheap watch? Just thinking about it feels like a mythical tale told in the woods. But it happened. You're probably wondering why he chose to take a different approach to formal occasions compared to his predecessors, aren't you? Well, the truth is that it was a deliberate attempt to portray himself as a common person, a man of the masses, only interested in serving the people judiciously. Gene Wingarten, who was a columnist for the Washington Post at the time, described the watch as a plastic digital watch, thick as a brick and handsome as a hernia. It's only fitting that the next man on our list is Clinton's immediate successor. Of course, we're talking about none other than Barack Obama. When elected, President Obama began wearing a large Jour grey chronograph with a black dial handed to him as a gift. By common logic, the number one job of the Secret Service is to take care of the president, but who's to say regularly spoiling Potus isn't part of the job description? They certainly did their job during Obama's 46th birthday, gifting him with the timepiece. How about we look into what the watch itself offers? To start with, the Jour grey 6500 is an incredibly accurate and reliable timepiece perfect for a businessman or when you're embarking on a long journey. It comes with a high-precision Japanese Miyota movement, which realistically may not be as popular among enthusiasts when compared to other automatic and mechanical counterparts, but make no mistake, it's insanely good. As if a high level of precision wasn't enough reason why this watch is worthy enough to be gifted to a president, the timepiece also has a water rating of 100 meters. In terms of design, the JG 6500 still shines. The matte black dial looks effortlessly magnificent, and it's complemented by a black Italian leather strap that takes things to a whole new level. The only downside we can think of is its 45mm round case size, which may not be suitable for people with smaller wrists. But even then, the sheer attention to detail and craftsmanship in the dial's finishing touches and design makes any con overlookable.